that you need, that the patient needs immediate surgery. Pneumothorax is a little bit less dramatic, but also very dangerous. And the patient can die of it. But that's also not a very complicated diagnosis. You can even detect it with a stethoscope. So, but those two very simple instruments had not been used. And I'm not sure that he would have survived if these instruments had been used and a diagnosis had been made. But it's something about the inherited diseases, that there is no awareness of these diseases. So if you know that a young man that has Marfan syndrome can have a sudden aortic dissection, that's important knowledge, and we need to spread that kind of knowledge. So that's my next point indeed. There is no awareness, even in the medical professionals. Very often there is no cure, or there is an excessive price for the cure. It is our duty, I think, to spread the awareness of inherited diseases. These diseases, each of them is rare, but we know now some 8,000 diseases that are inherited monogenic. So a single gene causes disease. In some diseases, there can be many genes involved, but only one of them needs to be mutated. For example, osteogenesis imperfecta. Yeah, so the awareness is important, and in those diseases, of 8,000 diseases, in any population that we've seen so far, there is around 6% of the population has some kind of inherited disease or inherited susceptibility. So it's impossible for even a family doctor or a primary care physician that there are no inherited diseases in his or her practice. And then the unethical attitude of the pharmaceutical industry. They use a simple profit model, divide the average cost of developing a new medicine by the number of patients. Now, the average cost is like $2.5 billion. And if you only have a small number of patients, you get prices in the order of 10 to 20,000 American dollars per month for one patient. And it's very difficult to persuade a health insurance company that they should pay for that. That's another ethical issue that I have not mentioned in my presentation. And I should have put it in, I'm sorry about that, but let's talk about it here. Insurance. So when we started testing DNA in inherited diseases, 33 years ago, my lab started. At that time, it began to become possible to do this kind of testing. At that time, we couldn't even sequence DNA from blood. We had to clone it in plasmids to do that. The PCR reaction had been invented already, but had not been used yet for sequencing. That took a couple of years to develop that. So in the beginning, I sequenced single-stranded copy DNA from single-stranded RNA, messenger RNA. That worked pretty well for collagen, because but that's beside the issue here. When we started, we got already the feeling that it might be necessary to do something about health insurance, because health insurance would exclude a family with a genetic disease for issues related to that disease. It would be a big problem. So we already discussed that, and in the it was even discussed in the parliament, and then the health insurance companies agreed not to exclude patients with inherited diseases, which is very good, but I don't know if this will happen. This will happen in all countries. I know, for example, that in Indonesia, before the general health insurance a few years ago, that was introduced into 2015 or so, I think. Before that, if you had a chronic disease, and inherited diseases are by definition chronic, you are excluded from health insurance. You will not only for this disease, but you will just take out of the health insurance. And that's really bad. Another insurance issue is life insurance. Of course, if you hear that you have North Korea and you have 10 years to live, you would like to take a very high life insurance. But then the insurance company will say, well, we do not insure a burning house as a comparison. And that's, of course, an issue to prevent that. In the Netherlands, we have now a covenant with the health insurance company that any life insurance with above a certain amount, and I think that's around 250,000 euros now. Above that amount, the insurance company may require you to declare whether you had genetic testing. And nowadays they often really ask that, which makes it difficult for patients with an inherited disease, depending on the disease, of course, but because not all inherited diseases are life-threatening. But usually when you get a loan for a house, and houses are much more expensive in the Netherlands than here, you need a loan of more than that amount of 250,000. And then you cannot get it because your life insurance is not possible. That's an ethical issue. I forgot to put in my presentation, but we have it here now. In some countries, the health insurance companies are also still excluding patients, like the United States used to be like that. I don't know if it's still the case. But at that time, people with, for example, Marfan syndrome would have their testing done in the Netherlands, in my lab, because we are the only lab that offers that in our country. Because they were afraid that their insurance company might exclude them from the health insurance and from the life insurance. Nowadays, we are not allowed anymore to do any testing for the United States because our liability insurance, our medical clinical liability insurance, does not cover liability related to cases in the United States because of the absurd amounts of money that are being requested and demanded in cases of errors. So the lab does not do any tests for the United States anymore. So, but we had here another unethical issue, the pharma industries, and that's the reason that we are now in my research, in the research lab in which I'm involved in Amsterdam. We are developing our own medication for inherited diseases. For example, for osteogenesis imperfecta, we take cells from the patient, we culture fibroblasts, and we transform them by the direct differentiation into osteoblasts, the bone-forming cells. And the primary problem in osteogenesis imperfecta is collagen, and in almost half of the patients it is the used amount of collagen. That's the mild form of OI, and the medication that we found has, because he just tested random small molecules on the cells, small molecule library from which is pharmaceutically interesting compounds. And then we found 3 compounds that enhance collagen synthesis. We are trying to get clinical trials, but that's expensive. So we may have to go back to the pharmaceutical companies anyway, but I hope we can do it without that. And then there's an important issue according to the Netherlands law. A therapy that is made by a hospital, and usually that will be about a method, and it's used for their own patient, does not fall under patent law. So if we have a compound that works, and our own pharmacology department or our own apotheker, hospital apotheker, will make that compound, we don't have to worry about the patent on the medication. I think in Indonesia, most people do not even worry about patents at all. So maybe we can find a pharmaceutical company that can make these compounds for us. Would be interesting. But also, it's possible that because worldwide patenting is very, very expensive, that some pharmaceutical companies have not patented their medication in all countries, and maybe they have forgotten about Indonesia, which is not an interesting market anyway, because the health insurance may not pay for the expensive medication. In the Netherlands, we have solved for one disease this problem by all the health insurance companies. They are collaborating. They have some sort of commission, and they have discussed this problem with some pharmaceutical company that makes the medication for spinal muscular atrophy, SMA. And this medication costs some $10,000 per patient per month. And the health insurance companies have made an agreement, not for the amount per patient, but for one fixed amount for all the patients in our country. So this amount has not been disclosed and will not be disclosed, but it's an interesting way of acting. So they do pay for the treatment, and all the patients can get it through the health insurance company. I think that kind of collaboration would be very, very difficult in Indonesia. 2 weeks ago, I was giving a lecture in Semarang at Undip about differences in culture between the Netherlands and Indonesia, and my view on that. And the students asked me, can you tell one thing in Indonesian culture that should be changed, or that is a problem? And I said, well, I see a problem with collaboration in Indonesia. And I gave an example of the boats in Labuan Bajo, that's on Flores, on the west point, and they bring the boats there that can bring you to the islands of Rance and Modo to see the dragons. Very interesting trip, but there are some 50 boats in the harbor. The last time I was there, I don't know how it is now, but all boats were in terrible shape, unsafe, and the captains of the boats were competing with each other almost to death, so the prices were very low and the boats were in very bad shape. And if they would collaborate, they could make it much more interesting for themselves and for the tourists, because the tourists, they would have to collaborate in a way that they can take turns in having tourists in their boat or something like that. I don't know how to do it, but in that case, they could ask maybe 3 times or 4 times more money for the trip. And the tourists would be happy to pay that, because for them it would still be a small amount, and the boats would be safer. But that kind of collaboration between universities in Indonesia is also impossible. The collaboration between an Indonesian university and a Dutch university is much more simple to organize than between two Indonesian universities. Okay, but that's not the point of today's lecture. Talking about collaboration. So prenatal testing is also a very important ethical issue. We have to ask, why is prenatal testing requested? It can be to be prepared for an affected child. Some laboratories won't do the test, but our laboratory does offer the test in that case, of course. And it can also be requested to consider termination of pregnancy if the child is affected. And of course, that depends on the severity of the disease. We will never do prenatal testing and termination of pregnancy for breast cancer susceptibility, for example. Sometimes we have a lot of immigrants in our country. About 25% of the population has an immigration background. That's a lot of people. And sometimes in their culture, in the culture of the immigrants, it's important to have a boy. So these people request a prenatal test to see if it's a boy or a girl, and they want to terminate the pregnancy if it is a girl. So we do not do that. So maybe they find some other obscure laboratory that will do the test for them, but this is, I think, not ethical. And that's an important ethical point here. So in some populations, it's considered normal. So in India, for example, there are, a few years ago, the last time I checked, there had been 11 million girls that had been aborted based on the chromosome testing. So that's a big problem now, because there is a huge problem with boys who cannot find a partner, because all the potential partners have been aborted. And that's because of the in their it's not simply religious, it's something in their culture that makes it necessary, or makes it a habit or whatever, to give a large amount of money, if possible, like a dowry, it's called DOWRY, as a gift for the family. When your daughter is marrying, you give a gift to the couple and to the family of the groom. And people cannot afford that, so they do not want a girl, so they ask for termination of the pregnancy. Okay, that's not even unethical, that's murder. So new technologies create new issues. Next generation sequencing is DNA or RNA sequencing of very large numbers of targets, DNA targets and samples, and we can do whole exome sequencing or whole genome sequencing. We can do targeted panels, and we can do non-invasive prenatal testing. I will show you how that works in a few slides. But first of all, of course, there is now a discussion about using this kind of technology for neonatal screening. And that's a big issue, because it's possible to test for all the known diseases, but also see a lot of other information, and everything that is inherited is in the DNA. So if you first already test for all possible diseases, not prenatal but postnatal, of course, on the heel prick blood, what do you do with that information? I just mentioned already, children have sorry, this is the non-invasive testing. Children have a right not to know that kind of information. So if you do the whole genome sequencing already at birth, will you keep all the data safe until the children are grown up, are adult at 18 years or 21 years, whatever? And are you doing just a panel of genes or a panel of mutations that you want to see? So that discussion is going on in Europe now. So the United Kingdom, the geneticists are in favor of doing the whole genome sequencing for everybody. And in the Netherlands, the geneticists are not in favor of that. So that's why we are developing now a new kind of MLPA test. I won't go into that technically, but to test all the diseases that are important for the blood, because it is these diseases can and should be treated as early as possible. That's why you need to detect it, despite the fact that they are very rare. So the non-invasive prenatal testing is based on the DNA in maternal blood from the baby, and the indications now are trisomies or Robertsonian translocation, so chromosomal aberrations that can cause very severely affected babies. The least severe is Down syndrome, so there is sometimes discussion about that. But Edwards syndrome and Patau syndrome, these Robertsonian translocation, I'm not sure, but I think it's also the same problem, that they have only a few days or weeks to live. And in those cases, of course, even though it's against the law, we can also look at one point in the law in Indonesia. It's the old Dutch law. It's in 1947. Mr. Hatta, who became then the first Minister of Justice in law in Indonesia, he said that we have all the colonial laws and it's a good working system. Why would we change that? So still, that system is in place without very many changes. There have been some changes, of course, and it would be interesting to compare that, the changes here with the changes to the same book of laws in the Netherlands, but that's for law students. But in those cases, in the very severe cases, we say, well, this is very traumatic for the mother to lose her baby so early. So we decide to terminate this pregnancy based on the sentence in the law that it's allowed to terminate the pregnancy if the pregnancy is traumatic for the mother. So far, there's no problem with that. But if someone is going to protest against this, we have to go all the way to the Supreme Court to get an arrest on our interpretation of the law. It's also possible to test specific mutations, and also cancer, with a deletion of the E here, in a mother may be detected, because it also results in cell-free DNA. I will go quickly over some technical issues here. The fetus has the cytotrophoblast, that's the villi, and there will be some free DNA to the mother's bloodstream. And normally the DNA in the blood is in the white cells. So we take maternal plasma, 10% of the free DNA, cell-free DNA is fetal DNA. We have a nice robot to do the isolation. We do quantitative PCR to test for quality, and we also do make what we call a next generation sequencing library of the cell-free DNA, and we use adapters for that. So we make the DNA that's isolated is double-stranded. We make the ends equal the ligate adapters to that, and that those adapters contain specific information. So the end is a PCR primer on both sides, and there is what we call a barcode, so a unique sequence for each sample. So you can, if you mix samples, you can just look at the barcode that will appear in your sequence later to sort samples, the results by patients, and of course, so what's in the adapter? So there is the primers that are used for the sequencing. Eventually, we use a specific way of purification, and well, you can see there's some Dutch text because I took these slides from my teaching for the technicians in the lab in Amsterdam, of course. But anyway, on the slide of the Illumina sequencer, there are primers fixed. It's the sequences bind to those primers, and each molecule will bind to a specific place, and that will be by PCR amplified to a cluster with identical sequence, and then you do sequencing by synthesis. So we have nucleotides with different colored labels, and for each step we block, or each of these labels, so sorry, each of these nucleotides has a blocking molecule on it, so you can, in one cycle of the sequencing, you can only add one nucleotide, because after that it will be blocked. Then you unblock and do the next color, the next base, and then you can read the sequence very slowly. So reading this way of synthesis and reading the sequence will take up to 3 days. But then you get, for each position, you get a sequence, and you get huge numbers of sequences. And then if you want to do next generation sequencing, you use this information for mapping the reads, we call them, the pieces of 100, around 100 nucleotides, the genome. Our bioinformaticians made a program called Wise Condor, and it gives you the results, and then you can do the final analysis, and you can also in this case it's aligned to the genome, and you get an alignment, and you get that way you get the reference genome, and you have the variation in the mother can be detected from the sequence from the white cells of the mother, and we can subtract the variations, and we can get this kind of pictures. And you get here the 21 chromosomes, the odd ones and the even ones, and then if there's an aberration, it will show up like this. So here's the chromosome 21 duplication, so you have trisomy. So this way we can do prenatal diagnosis on maternal blood at, I think it's about 10 or 11 weeks of pregnancy. The ethical issues are, of course, is the termination of pregnancy requested? Is there cancer in the mother? The mother needs to be informed of that very rare possibility that it will be detected, but we have to report it because it can be life-threatening. And can we test only on chromosome number? Will we also test on known mutations? We can do whole genome sequencing on the fetal DNA. It's not possible yet, but on the fetal DNA in the mother bloodstream. But we can look at specific diseases in the family. We can also look at specific diseases in the population. So there's a lot to be to be done, and early detection of inherited diseases. So this is not about NIPT, but about the neonatal screening. In the heel prick test, we have 29 diseases that can be treated and that need to be treated early for survival, for not developing mental retardation or not developing severe disease. And currently it's done in 2 tiers. A simple, inexpensive test for each disease, high sensitivity, low specificity, and then the second tier test on DNA with high specificity. The problem with this is that after the first test, you have to tell the parents that have a positive test outcome that they have to wait another week, 2 weeks for the final DNA test. That gives a lot of unrest, and usually there is like 70% or so false positives. So that's, if you can prevent that, it can be prevented by doing next generation sequencing, whole exome or whole genome sequencing. You sequence all genes at birth, and you need this test only once in a lifetime if it's done well. And you can test new disease genes in later analyses if you can store all the data. The disadvantage is expensive in infrastructure and consumables, and there are ethical and privacy issues, of course. And like I said, the child has a right not to know. That can be, you can get around this if you decide before you offer the test that you will only look at those 29 genes and not look at any other things. But it's difficult, I think. And sometimes there's not 100% coverage. So we have an MLPA test-based test in development, so I won't go into that, but the advantage is it's cheap and fast, single T, no follow-up test. And it will be a lot cheaper than the 29 tests that are being done now, and also be only a very small fraction of the price of next generation sequencing. But for new disease genes, we need a new design for the probes. And new mutations may not be detected. That's also a disadvantage, but very, very rare. So most inherited disease, so this is the conclusion for inherited diseases. So not for the ethical issue. So I will go over this quickly. The accreditation I already mentioned. We need that for clinical geneticists, for counselors, and for interpretation of the results. So that's done by the scientists. So scientists need, because in the current situation in Indonesia, any laboratory test can only be signed out by a pathologist. Pathologists do not know anything about genetics usually, and do not know anything about data interpretation for genetic tests. So we need to change this law, or we need to train the pathologist in doing this, or in collaboration with a scientist who does know about genetics. Okay, that was the last slide. There is a few minutes for questioning. Sorry, I talked too long, but are there any questions?
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, Gerard, for the very informative presentation. And if I may make a kind of short conclusion about what you have given to us, is first about the counseling issues in Indonesia, that we don't have yet the accredited genetic counselor counseling at the hospital. And then it's very important. And also we are fortunate because the Ministry of Health has been appointed Sarjito Hospital as the one of the 6 genome hub in Indonesia just recently.
Oh, nice.
And yes, and they will give the hospital the next generation sequencing to be able to do the genetic testing. And according to the tasks that have been appointed to the hospital, is that Sarjito Hospital should be one of the outstanding hospital in giving service on rare disease, genetic disease.
Okay, good.
So your lecture is very important because I think this is also one of the things that we have to prepare for the genetic services, genetic counseling services, and also, and thanks for you that you also part of our team at Gajah Mada, and we hope that we can do a training for the genetic counseling and genetic counselor, and of course for the advanced technology that we don't have the equipments collaboration between Gajah Mada and FU MC and AMC should be tightened, that might be able to also do some advanced technology that you have just shown us, the NGS, and that's such so complicated what you have to make conclusion of the test is not easy if you don't have any experience. So that's why that will be good if we can do together, and then you will be one of the expertise in give hands-on training for the clinician as well as for the genetic counseling to do that, and especially for the rare disease that genetic disease that we have to be able to give best services for the patient. And yeah, the other things is also we learn from you that in Netherlands everything is covered under insurance for the genetic testing as
That's
well
important,
as
yes.
but I don't know yet. So far that we know in Indonesia, some of them have been covered by insurance, but I think maybe we should also learn from you how the parliament will decide that it should be included in the insurance. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to make clear to them that eventually it will, in the long term, it will save money for health insurance.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I think this is the important thing that I should mention, but now I think we should go to open to the floor for the discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll invite questions from all of you that of course will be important also for strengthening our team here at Gajah Mada. Yeah, yeah. So what should be done for us to be ready, because we are soon having the equipments, but yet for the team, for the genetic counseling and also the analysis, we should have the expertise on it.
Yeah,
so,
first of all, you need to look into the option of getting tax exemption for the equipment as well as for the consumables, because it's very expensive. The price in Indonesia is 2 or 3 times the price we pay in Singapore or in the Netherlands because of the economic protection system of taxes and
yeah, my question is, who is the right to give the exemption?
There are special forums for that, and I know that at Undip, Nani Maharani is the one who does that, and I think I gave the forums also to Neni Devyani Punamasari. You know her probably. Yeah. And otherwise, I can forward them, but.
But I mean, for the at the level for maybe at the level of national level.
No, there is a national agreement.
It's already there.
It's already there, and
Okay.
you can, but you have to do it before you order. You have to discuss it with the. You have to have the right forms, and the vendor, the Indonesian vendor, has to know about it and has to do something. But I'm not sure how that works. But
Okay.
it's very important because it can save a huge amount of money. And the problem, the last time that we started sequencing at Yamada, there was a nice sequencer, but it was never used because it was too expensive to use it, and no one knew how to use it. And yeah, that's an important issue. That as soon as you have the equipment for next generation sequencing, you should already have an idea of what you're going to do with it, what kind of samples. We can also give some training to people, but that has to be done in Amsterdam, I'm afraid, for all these technologies. But I have to see if that's possible, because it will also interfere with our workflow, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Can it be done by online? I mean,
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. The questions can always be done online, of course, but training is a bit more difficult. But maybe we can do it. Yeah. If the company also offers, when you get a new machine, they also offer a few days of training, of course.
Yeah.
But the data management and interpretation is important. So you also need the computers and the bioinformaticians to do this. You don't have bioinformaticians yet for this purpose, I think. But once you get started, you will generate a lot of data that has to be managed, and so what needs to be done is the data needs to be yeah, after several runs you will have several terabytes of information, and our lab in Amsterdam generates some 4 or 5 terabytes per day, and there's no way you can handle that with a PC.
Yeah.
So
maybe we learn from you, how can you manage the data for so many data, so big data?
Yeah, you cannot store the really raw data. So after mapping, the software needs to look at the variations, the differences with the common human genome, the database, the GenBank, etc. So reference genome, I wanted to say, and that amount of data you get then, that's around some 7 gigabytes, 6 to 7 gigabytes per individual, and that's manageable. You can store it on a hard disk, and it's about the size of a movie. So people store a lot of movies on their PC, so that's possible. And the software to handle all this is also it's on a good PC. You can do a lot of work on this, but for the crunching of the first step in the crunching of the data and doing the alignments, etc., you need either a very heavy PC, or we use cluster computers for this. So it's actually an array of 10 PCs with one. But there is 9 slave units and one managing computer.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually at Faculty of Medicine have team for manage the information technology data.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
you need to talk to them before you start.
Yeah, they already team appointed by the dean,
okay,
and there are consists of researchers from basic to also from public health. Mostly the leader is from the public health, but the team also include the biobank team as well.
Okay, so, very good. That's important. Yeah. And the health insurance, I was just thinking that Prof. Ali Gufran, he was former Director General of the Ministry of Higher Education and Research and Industry. Now he's, I think, manager or director of the health insurance companies. So, and he helped me getting the tax exemption for research 2 years ago. So maybe I should visit him again and see what he can do. Tell him about prevention.
Yeah,
that's what I did in the Netherlands. But that's already 25 years ago. But anyway, it's nice that we can get the next generation sequencing going, and I hope you will succeed in keeping it going, because the Sanger sequencing is not a very good. We need the Sanger sequencing, of course, also, and you have a nice ABI 3500 sequencer, 8 capillaries, yeah, and
Yeah.
so we can use that if it's still in good shape. Otherwise, we need to put it in good shape. So that's something, because you want to follow up if you have found a new variant in a family. You need to sequence only that exon and a tiny fragment of DNA in the family. You do not need to do next generation sequencing in all the families.
Targeted, eh? Target.
That's a very simple and very cheap procedure for the diagnosis. But
Yeah, I think many young PhD that come from back from their study, they are already very expert on that technology. But the things is that maybe we should make a kind of synergy and working together in collaboration to develop more good team, solid team on it. Yeah, I invite questions, or maybe something that will be proposed or asked, or something to Gerard. I saw Pak Romokos. Maybe Romokos, you have something to ask? Romokos is Dr. Dr. Kusmarianto. He is a bioethicist. He is a medical doctor and very expert in bioethics. So I think there are some differences between Netherlands and also Indonesia in terms of termination of pregnancy in certain condition. Maybe we can discuss on it, Romo. Monggo, Romo.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Sofia. First of all, I have to thank Prof. Gerard of this presentation, because for me, genetic and bioethics especially, for me, it is very much interesting. There are two reasons why for me it is interesting. I believe that it is our future. Our future will be here. But the second thing that for me also interesting, because there are many things that we don't know exactly how it will be. Yeah. So in this context, I will ask not two things. One thing is question, and the second is about the comment. And the first question is how many actually genetical disease can be cured today? It is the first, and the second is about bioethical issues and genetic. For me, one of the most important issues of genetic is the right not to know, and for me it is important. Why? Because if I already know, for example, in the future when I will be 30, I will get the cancer, for example, it makes me anxious. But if I don't know, so that's why I have to explore my future with the joy, with the joy, and also all the possibilities that I have, etc. So that's why the right not to know about this for me is one of the most important. So that's why we can have the joy in our life. It is really clear also that if I know something will happen in the future, so I can prepare for myself. But it seems to me, once again, it seems to me that a right not to know is even better than the right to know in this case. Once again, why? Because if I do not know my future, so I will explore. I will build my future with all with all of my abilities. I will build my future so that my future will be in my hand, not in some other hands. So that's why, for me, once again, the right not to know about this is very important. So, okay, it is two things that I just want to ask to you. Okay, what's your comment about my opinion about this? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the questions. The first question was how many diseases can actually be treated. And well, we know of that at least the 29 diseases that are currently being offered being investigated in the Hilprick neonatal screening. We do that because they can be treated. Very slowly we get therapies for more diseases. And I mentioned already very expensive therapies. Also, in some diseases, lifestyle is important. You can have lifestyle advices next to therapy. But I'm not sure how many diseases, the inherited diseases, can actually be treated at the moment. I don't have that information. And what you said about the right not to know, that was one of my important issues. I underlined it even in two of my slides. It's important to know to be prepared for your later life, so you can do something about it. But also the anxiety that comes with the knowledge is important, and especially for children, I think it's good that they have a life with less anxiety without that knowledge. But after they are 18, we may have to discuss with them that we have the knowledge. Very important issue from ethics point of view, yes.
Okay, is there any yeah, please, monggo.
Okay.
Monggo.
The other thing is that I know my diseases, for example, genetical diseases, and I know that I don't have enough money, for example, yeah. So that's why it's only I know, but I cannot do nothing. So that's why one of the ethical problem that maybe in a rich country it will not be great issue, but here in Indonesia it will be great issue because I know, but I can do nothing. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an important issue, of course. That the health insurance and the money, and for example, for thalassemia, we need to do the testing because I noticed that even in the cities, people who have thalassemia in the family do not know it's an inherited disease. So that kind of knowledge needs to be more common. And thalassemias, for the milder forms, that is of course a medication possible. So it depends a lot on the disease indeed. In some diseases, when there's no treatment option available or affordable, then we have a problem. Yeah, that's we need to work on that, and creating awareness is the first step.
Ada lagi, Romo?
Excuse. Okay.
Oh, Prof Yati.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Hello, Professor Pauls. Thank you very much for your speech. Yeah, I'm a pediatrician. I sometimes face a problem with the age and the maturity. So I think we know about the consent and assent. Regardless the ability to make a consent, children can be involved in assent, right? To listen and to this. So, do you have any limitation of age or maturity to be involved in this assent or consent? If yes, thank you.
I think the legal age in our country is 18 years.
18 years.
In some countries it may be lower.
Yeah.
And it's also the question of how mature is a child, irrespective of age. Sometimes that's difficult to see.
So very strict to age, yeah, regardless the fact that some of the younger mature enough to be involved, even though not make a consent, but at least assent. So they are involved in the discussion.
Yeah, and of course, for some diseases, it's important that the children are tested, like the neonatal screening. For example, the metabolic diseases or the sex disorder problems, that you have to start the treatment with hormones, for example, as soon as possible. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. I see that TV has a hand, raising a hand. Did you want to say something, TV?
Halo, Prof. Gerard.
Hello.
Ya.
Ya.
Suara nggak dengar.
Halo.
Yeah.
Ya, oke. Ya.
Thank you so much, Prof. Gerard, for the presentation. It's really nice to discuss about the issues and the ethical issues in genetic testing. So I think that it is good that Indonesia starts to adopt this technology. However, it is also focused so much on the technology. However, once we want to apply this technology, it will be much related to how the community accept or uptake this new testing. And as you already mentioned also, that it is a different context, that for example in the Netherlands, the prenatal testing can be also followed up by termination of the pregnancy if according to the result, which is very different with the Indonesian context, where a termination can be very difficult. And then the second difference also that I got is about the insurance coverage, where in the Netherlands maybe the cost is more towards the insurance company and not towards the individuals and the community. And then the third difference is also about the expert, that you have already the experts and then the infrastructure there, which currently we don't have here, or we are going towards this direction. And what do you think are the other differences in the ethical issues that may be specifically also for Indonesia, which may also be different with the context in the Netherlands?
Yeah, I think most of the ethical issues we have been discussing, it's more about money actually. That's also an ethical issue usually, but and the accreditation that you mentioned also, that I mentioned too. The way we did that, so when I started my laboratory, I just had my biochemical, my knowledge as a biochemist, and as I knew about genetics, then I started the laboratory and did testing, and then I got experience. So when we started 7 years later, the accreditation board for clinical molecular geneticists, I was one of the board members, of course, and we wrote together the requirements for accreditation. But for ourselves, we had to, and that's always happening in a new clinical discipline. The existing people who do the job need some kind of accreditation after the fact, so that you are, based on your experience, you can be given the accreditation. And we wrote actually guidelines for that also. So, and then you have an accreditation board, and you have some accredited people in all the hospitals, and then you can, the next generation needs to be educated. So you need to start some kind of formal education for clinical molecular science, for counseling. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Putri, for your questions. And actually, at INA-SHG's level, Indonesia's Association for Human Genetics Association, they already started to think about, and to start really, not think and action will have genetic counseling courses, and it will started from Gajah Mada, I think. And
Okay, nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
But point awareness that you just mentioned, awareness that for the community and also for the government, for the parliament, how should we approach for to be those people can be aware of the importance of this kind of genetic testing in ethical issues. Yeah. How can we? Yeah. I don't know.
How can we
start
create the awareness? Yeah, I'm working on it by giving lectures for Prodia. When I'm in Prodia, so sometimes I usually go there for 2 months at a time, and then every Saturday I go to a different city and give a lecture to the local doctors, and then usually there are the local Prodia branch organizes that, and they invite the doctors. And usually there are between 100 and 200 doctors, and I tell about genetics, about genetic diseases, about what kind of testing we are developing. So that's already a lot of awareness among the doctors that I'm creating. But I think it's also important for, regarding inherited diseases that we look at the posjandus, not at the puskesmas, but also the posjandus, because the nurses there, posjandu, they see the babies first. And if they know what to look at, and they can recognize the fact that not what disease it is, but there's something maybe related to inherited disease in the babies, they can refer to the clinical genetics or to a doctor who knows more about it. That's the first line. But first, we need, of course, to educate the doctors about this, otherwise they will be not happy if we give the nurses knowledge that they don't have. That's an important issue, I think.
Excuse me. In your country, how do you approach the decision makers?
Do I approach, sorry?
Yeah, the decision makers regarding something like that, because they play important role as well for parliament.
I didn't understand the last word of your question.
Yeah.
Approach the decision maker, Gerard. How?
Yeah.
How is the decision made to do
decision makers about this
to be aware and then take a positive action toward.
Oh, that's what you mean.
Yeah. Because
well, we approach the politicians, so there is a parliamentary committee for healthcare.
Yeah,
we talked to them.
Yeah.
So we just asked the opportunity to talk to them. Yeah. And then we approached members of the parliament.
Yeah.
And we approached newspapers, and so that's the way to go. If there's no awareness, you need to create it by attention. And I don't know how important television is for this kind of things in Indonesia.
I see.
That's,
yes.
I have not seen any Indonesian TV programs yet, so.
And in Indonesia, like television, healthcare, what is that, association, it's already, what do you call, often to be approached. But for the politician, because they play important role as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, we just requested to talk to them, so we could meet them in the parliament building.
Okay.
And then we tell them this is a problem, and then some of them will. And then one of the members of parliament just very seriously. So he came to visit me at VU to look at what we are doing and to discuss things. And and that's the kind of people you need, of course. But your parliament is larger than ours. Very large.
Yeah. But in Indonesia, Prof, do you have any information?
The country is so large. First, I think you need to create media attention. That's a big issue, and that can be done by the patient organizations, maybe.
Yes.
So yeah. And but there are so many different diseases that there are also many patient organizations, maybe.
Yeah. To identify the strongest organization related in our country.
Yeah, but
Thank
it
you.
also needs to become an important part in the curriculum of the medical students.
Okay, yeah.
That's
As well as nursing.
Nursing and medical school, yeah.
Not nursing and medical school. Yeah, that's important, and we don't have that yet. So we need to take care of that, and that's also something that the INSAG can be doing.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, especially involving the nurse school, because nursing school they feel being respected as well.
Yes,
because usually only doctors being listened. Yeah, that's a good idea, Prof. Rika. We can.
I think a very good point, Prof. Yati. Since the Ministry of Health has been launched, what he call it, BGS Biomedical Genome Science Initiative in last August. So it means he have to be responsible to provide and also to support the development of the curriculum in the nursing and nursing level. Of course, maybe at the medical will be more easier, but at the nursing, it's so wide, so many polytechnics in Indonesia, thousands of polytechnics that should be aware and ready to put the curriculum related to genetics.
Yes. That's very important. I gave the training for counseling already once before in 2016, 17, I think, in Pembicara, and then we also did a role play, and then we had separate lectures for the doctors. Of course, need more clinical information for the nurses, but then when we did role play with the doctors, they were very hesitant to do something in front of their peers because they didn't want to be embarrassed.
Yeah,
and the
that's right.
Nurses had so much fun doing this. They all wanted to be patient, and it was really great to see that.
I do agree. And nurses, they are very, they appreciated being involved because sometimes, sorry to say, they are always sometimes underlooked.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yes.
Yeah, so that's maybe we can start it, Prof. Rika, at our school.
Yeah. Sometimes the doctors need to learn something from the nurses, you know.
Yeah, they should. We should.
Yeah. We have to learn each other.
Yeah.
So I think this point should be followed up, Prof. Yati, for the not only just for the discussion today, but of course for the next preparedness of our community and also our healthcare system. Maybe we should also propose to the dean and also to the dean to put the curriculum not only at the medical faculty but also at the nursing program.
We have already made a plan, Prof. Rika, to meet the dean as soon as possible. Thank you.
We can do it together.
We will inform you later, Prof. Gerard.
So Gerard will be in Indonesia for years and years, but mostly back and forth, between Indonesia, Netherlands, and maybe other countries. But during in Indonesia, maybe next time, we still can have you to give lectures and to give some enrichment in genetics and ethics, or maybe ideas to have research together.
Joint research,
that's really nice. So there is the BRIN option now for grants, but also the LPDP. If there also from the LPDP is now also for master students. So if there are students who want to do a master internship in the Netherlands and do their masters here in Pembicara, that's a perfect opportunity. We've done that before when Dicty still existed, and it's actually a very nice way of seeing how research is done and get some experience.
I do agree because I took my PhD at the FU. my PhD. Yeah, it is very useful to have such collaboration. So we should follow it up, Professor Gerard.
Yeah, but maybe we also need to update the MOU with VU, because I think it was 5 years ago, no, 7 years already that we signed it.
Yeah, to renew.
We
To
renew it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You mean FU and AMC at the same time?
Well, you can make one combined now, because we had it's one organization now.
Yeah.
So the new MOU needs to be for both. So and it was in 2015 that we came to Gajah Mada with a group of people from the VU, and it was VU alone. So we need to update that. Yes.
Yeah.
If you can make a draft.
Gerard, for your information, Gajah Mada have had the first master program on bioethics. This is the only master program in Indonesia.
No, not in Indonesia. Asia Pacific.
In Asia Pacific.
Asia Pacific, we are the only one, and we also lead. Involve the Asia Pacific countries. So we need to collaborate.
Really Yes. Okay, but I need to go now because I have to prepare for my next
thank you
lecture.
very much.
Thank you.
I'll invite Prof Yati to close the Rabuan meeting. Please, Prof Yati.
First of all, I would like to express our thanks to Professor Gerard. You are in a rush, but till we meet again as soon as possible, and then we continue with the Indonesian. Bye, Professor Gerard. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah, Prof Rika, I
Yes.
think we should make a follow-up. And then we can continue. Communicate with. So please, on your hand.
I think this point is very important because the Ministry of Health is already appointed Gajah Mada and Sarjito as the one of the genome hub for genetic disease, and especially for the board of genetic, we don't have yet, and we don't have the expertise, we don't have the capability. So that's why, we should.
Why don't we start officially and then we come to we meet the team? It's a good event because I witnessed by so many Indonesian experts. Why don't we speak in Indonesia?
That's right, correct.
Ini mungkin saat ini kita declare saja, kita dirikan, terus di follow up.
Terima kasih. Jadi mungkin Mbak Tiwi bisa membuat minute dari hasil diskusi ini, conclusion bahwa karena kita juga sudah ditunjuk oleh Kementerian Kesehatan sebagai salah satu genome hub di Indonesia yang harus siap di dalam genetic disease, rare genetic disease, walaupun yang lain juga harus siap, tetapi kita harus diperkuat dengan kemampuan-kemampuan SDM, expertise, dan juga teamwork yang baik. Jadi mungkin ini bisa disampaikan ya nanti Prof Yati, kita bisa atur sama bioethics dan dengan Bu Siwi juga rawuh.
Bu Siwi ada rawuh ini.
Wonten,
Bu Siwi leading center CBMH. Bu Siwi ada.
Tadi
ada Prof. Meniko sepertinya ada kegiatan lain sehingga harus live.
Nanti di aja. Di follow up pada meeting ini kita sepakat untuk ditindaklanjuti dengan CBMH sebagai leading department, center, leading center Prof, karena ini transdisiplin, Pak.
And also sebagai UNESCO Chair on Bioethics jadi ini merupakan salah satu hasil kolaborasi yang perlu untuk diteruskan karena masuk di dalam ranah bioethics, tetapi untuk pelayanan.
Baik, kalau gitu nanti saya kontak Bu Siwi sebagai orang bertanggung jawab untuk UNESCO Chair Asia
Ya.
Pasifik kita.
Ya.
Nanti dengan Bu Siwi, jadi memang komitmennya Faculty of Medicine, the Dean, dan kita Bioethics, Faculty of Medicine, Center for Internal Medicine, and UNESCO Chair, gitu ya, Prof.
Ya. Iya.
Nanti dilaporkan ya di minutes ya. Siapa yang bikin minutes?
Mbak Tiwi ya, Mbak Tiwi ya.
Mbak Tiwi tolong di highlight tindak lanjut dari kita ini.
Ya.
Prof.
Makasih Mbak.
Ada Profesor Arif Hussein itu dari mana? Good afternoon,
dari Bangladesh.
Profesor Arif Hussein, thank you
From Bangladesh.
for attend the discussion. Maybe next time you can also have presentation with us.
Assalamualaikum sebelum leave, Profesor
Arif
Hussein from Bangladesh.
Yeah.
When are you going to come? We are looking forward to have you come to Indonesia. Ada?
Masih di mute, Prof. Masih di mute.
Oh iya. Kan beliau bilang akan datang, Pak.
Iya.
Nah, ya. Nanti ditulis apa ya? Ditulis itu Mbak Tiwi.
Iya.
Ditulis di chat itu pertanyaan Prof Rika dan saya, when are you going to come to Indonesia? Prof Hussein ya.
Iya.
Prof and nyonyanya Arif Hussein and Madam.
Yeah.
We are looking forward to your visit to CBMH.
Yeah.
Tulis di chat itu pertanyaan Prof Rika dan saya, when are you going to come to Indonesia? Prof Hussein ya. Hussein ya. Prof and nyonya Arif and Madam
Yeah.
We are looking forward to your visit CBMH. Tulis chat itu pertanyaan Prof Rika dan saya, when are you going to come to Indonesia? Prof Hussein ya. Ini siapa ini yang bicara? Siapa, Prof? Nanti saya kirim WA-nya. Ini siapa? Prof Rika yang bicara baru saja. Halo.
Kok ya bergaung ya, Prof?
Siapa?
Sepertinya dari device Prof Rika, Modiko.
Ini siapa ini?
Saya ini kami dari panitia Prof Yati, Modiko.
Tadi bukan panitia. Tadi yang bicara akan hadir.
Diko tadi sepertinya dari device Prof Rika, mungkin suaranya mendouble dari situ, Prof, karena nampak dari indikator di sini itu mic-nya Prof Rika waktu itu memang sedang berbicara.
Tapi itu suara dari Prof An.
Mungkin sampun kalau sudah tidak ada kalau sudah diselesaikan dari device-nya Prof Rika, bisa unmute lagi Prof Rika.
Mana Prof Rika malah hilang. Halo Prof Rika.
Di sini Prof. Saya
tidak ada. Kalau tolong ditulis dari Prof Rika, bisa unmute lagi Prof Rika.
Oh, saya tutup ya.
Kok ditutup? Kenapa ditutup?
Biar nggak bergaung, Prof.
Oke. Ya. Jadi itu yang terakhir itu yang mengenai Prof Hussein Bangladesh ditulis supaya bisa kita tindak lanjuti karena mereka yang bilang akan segera datang itu untuk joint research supaya mereka tahu bahwa kita follow up terus. Siapa yang merespons? Halo.
Prof Narto, nanti dari panitia dan staf di center nanti akan menindaklanjuti
sebelumnya
rencana yang tadi.
Di garis bawahi apa yang ditindaklanjuti dengan Prof Hussein?
Tentang pertemuan dengan Prof Hussein yang katanya akan ke Indonesia dan juga riset kolaboratif, joint research.
Nah, itu kapan begitu? Kita looking forward ya.
nanti akan berkomunikasi dengan Prof Husennya melalui email atau melalui WhatsApp ngaten nggih?
Sebelumnya di WA ke kita dulu ya, Prof Rika sama saya,
Baik.
biar nyambung.
Nggih,
Biar
baik.
nyambung. Nanti dia bingung ki sopo kok ujuk-ujuk.
Nggih, baik,
Jadi
Prof
kalau
Yati.
dari saya sama Prof Rika menindaklanjuti janjinya dia untuk visit ke Indonesia untuk join research. Gitu. Oke.
Nggih, Prof Narto, Prof Yati, ngapunten niku dan Prof Rika menika apabila kegiatan Rabuannya sudah selesai, maka kami dari panitia izin sebelumnya untuk mengumumkan kegiatan Rabuan yang akan dilaksanakan minggu depan.
Ya, maaf tadi lupa terus bablasan. Silahkan.
Matur suwun Prof Yati, menika Bapak Ibu untuk kegiatan Rabuan minggu depan dengan judul penanganan bencana dalam bingkai bioetik dengan pembicara Dr. Sony Ramdhani dan moderator Dr. Nur Azid Mahardinata. Untuk waktunya seperti biasa di hari Rabu jam 1 siang.
Dr. Azid sudah sanggup?
Nggih, sanggup. Saged tadi sudah dikonfirmasi kepada Pak Azid. Nggih.
Iya loh,
mungkin
diingatkan
itu,
jangan sampai mendadak tidak bisa gitu. Enggak enak. Kalau sudah, apalagi kalau sudah ditulis.
Nggih. Matur suwun kepada
Anda siapa,
kami. Saya Alivia, Prof dari staf CBMH.
Ya, tolong ya Mbak Alivia, yang dengan Pak Azid ketemu sendiri.
Oh, nggih, baik, Prof.
Terima
Prof
kasih.
Yati. Nggih, sami-sami.
Selamat sore. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Prof Rika, Gus Pundi. Prof Rika sepertinya sudah meninggalkan Zoom. Menika berarti sekalian dari panitia yang akan ambil alih untuk menutup Rabuan kita pada siang hari ini. Terima kasih banyak Bapak Ibu Prof atas kedatangannya dan atas partisipasinya. Kita bertemu lagi di minggu depan di jam dan hari yang sama.
Sudah ada topiknya belum? Belum ada topik.
Sampun Prof yang tadi. Sampun Prof barusan disebutkan yang tadi itu.
Ya. Terima kasih.
Matur suwun.
Assalamualaikum. Sami-sami.
Waalaikumsalam.
Ditutup. Kalau belum, Mbak, tolong nanti satu-satunya di CBMH itu satu-satunya di Asia Pasifik. Siapa yang dengar? Jangan lupa. Oke, thank you. Halo, ada yang masih bisa dihubungi panitia? tolong kita bikin ini dari pihak kita sendiri, jangan dari luar, apalagi dari negara barat. Ya, tolong yang masih mendengar dari CBMH diingatkan kita bikin promosi itu dengan mempromotkan program-program kita sendiri. Ya, ada help, jangan ambil dari luar. Thank you. Ada yang dengar? Mudah-mudahan ada yang dengar. Ada 15 partisipan. Thank you very much.